I really wanted to make a fumet or a fish stock, but for the life of me, I cannot source the white fish bones I need. So unless I want to go spend, I don't know, the next 3 weeks eating fish constantly, which I do not want to do, especially working in a sushi restaurant, I got myself some pork bones. So we are going to do a pork stock today and talk about the blanched bone method. We'll kind of kill two birds with one stone. We get to make pork stock and we get to do the blanched bone method. So stay with me as I try to salvage this episode. It's good to be home. It's a little cold up there, but that's the November for you. And it's probably dating this video. Anyways, yes, today instead of fumet or fish stock, we're talking about pork stock, and specifically a blanched bone pork stock. Now, obviously, besides the name being different than a roasted bone stock that we did in the chicken episode, the blanched bone method will have us boil these bones for about 5 minutes in your stock pot, drain them, drain away all the scum, all the fat, give them a nice rinse off in cold water, and then start the process of the usual stock making. Bones, mirepoix, up to simmer, add aromatics, and, wait until it's done. Which, by the way, this will take about 6 to 12 hours depending on your size of bones. So, again, be wary of your time and plan accordingly. So, blanched bone methods are actually really common around the world, just like roasted stock methods. Blanched bone methods you could see a lot in like ramens, fuzz, minestrones, chicken noodle soup. They are great to giving you a subtle flavor. And just like roasted stocks, the flavor profile in which you're going for, or the end result of the dish, matters a lot. Subtle flavors are just as important as the strong, punchy flavors of a roasted beef stock or chicken stock. So, like for example, if I wanted to utilize a blanched bone stock, let's say I'm making like a chashu pork ramen, right? And I have these fatty cuts of pork, but I want this subtle porky, broth to be like a backdrop to it, to add to accent it, but also be a bit of a palate cleanser because that fat really coats your tongue. At the same time, I want it to pair well with the umami flavor you get from sliced shiitake mushrooms and the pungent flavor of soy sauce marinade, soft-boiled egg. On the flip side, if you want like a roasted bone stock, let's say you're doing a kind of more of an aggressive flavor profile, let's say like toasted barley and beef or pork base. You're caramelizing your mirepoix or your vegetables in like pork fat or lard, and you have nice big chunks of seared pork floating throughout it. So having that stronger, robust flavor as a base could be really helpful to accent that pork. Just drive home the fact that you're having a pork soup. Again, it depends on what your end goal is. Now, with all this yapping, let's actually start cooking, because, man, I get tired of talking. As per usual, let's start off with our equipment we'll need today. Of course, for the stock, we need a stock pot. Again, this recipe will yield anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 quarts. So we'll shoot for our big guy. This is a 16-quart pot, as you know. Next, our little cutting board, since my big cutting board is preoccupied with cookies on top of it, a knife, a ladle, and tongs, just in case anything gets a little too hot to handle. Next, when you finish everything off, we'll need a strainer or colander or both to get all the fine particles. And if you want to get extra fine particles out of there, a few layers of cheesecloth. And for me today, since I actually need to use a sachet, which I'll talk about later, I'll need some butcher's twine. Again, both these items can be found in your local grocery store or even a small restaurant supply store. I would check near the baking aisle or where they have those weird off-brand silicone spatulas and really cheap cheap non-stick pans. I'm losing my mind. Finally, we'll need something to cool things in. Remember that we're going to yield about, let's say on the high side, 4.5 quarts, excuse me. So something that can safely hold that and cool it down quickly. With that, let's talk about ingredients. So to begin with ingredients, we start first with about 6 pounds of pork bones or pork neck bones. Now sometimes the pork necks come in a little extra meaty. Go ahead and trim that off if you can, if you want to. If not, it'll kind of affect the flavor, but not a whole lot. Save the pork, make carnitas out of it, braise it off, make pulled pork sandwiches, whatever you want to do. Now, for this recipe, the weird part and the most important part, in which we're discussing today, is the white mire poix. Now, as a reminder, mire poix being 2 parts onion to 1 part carrot to 1 part celery. So here, when we use white mire poix, it does a few things for us. One, it gives a subtle base aromatic flavor, in which I discussed in our vegetable stock episode. At the same time, it helps retain the lighter color and lighter nature of a blanched bone stock. So, for today, instead of using yellow onion, we're using either white onion or leek. For the carrot, we're using parsnips, and for the celery as a replacement, we're using celeriac. Now, celeriac is the root of the celery, so if you imagine it, this bulb is underground and the celery sprouts up. So, celeriac is probably not an ingredient you have utilized a whole lot of, or if you have, congratulations. I think it has a great celery flavor. It can be roasted and have a nice little bit of smokiness to it, but for the proportions or the amount we need today, for the onion section, we need 8 ounces or 278 grams. For the parsnip, we need 4 ounces or 113 grams. And for the celeriac, we need, again, 4 ounces or 113 grams. Now, for the aromatics. Coming in as per usual, some chefs would kind of disagree of what aromatics you want to use in a white mire poix based stock, but we're going to keep it simple for today. We are going to use thyme, peppercorns, garlic, and parsley. Oh shit, I forgot. Oh shit. And bay leaf. So, the proportions for each of these. Bay leaves, we need 2 to 3. I'm probably going to use 4 or 5 just because I want more of that flavor for this particular stock. Thyme, you need 10 to 15 stems. Parsley, you need 6 to 7 stems. Garlic cloves crushed and peeled away, you need 6 to 9. And for the black peppercorns, 10 to 15 whole black peppercorns. Now, with those ingredients all out of the way, let's actually start blanching some bones. Stock pot. Empty all your bones and all the extra juices into said stock pot and fill with cold water, about 3 or 4 inches above the line of the bones. And I'm going to bring this up to a boil over medium high heat, whatever gets you there faster. And then let them go for 5 minutes. That's it. Then we'll drain these guys off. Now, again, let this come up to a boil, and while this is all happening, let's prepare our aromatics and our mire poix. So, a little bit of nerding out here. Parsnip, or, Passionecue sativa, is a crop from antiquity. Now, this was a beloved crop in Greek, Rome, and parts of the Mediterranean. It actually originates from Eurasia. Parsnip was used as the original kind of sweetener before sugarcane and sugar beets were introduced, and it was also a famine crop. So when there would be, before potatoes existed in Europe and was brought over from the Americas, parsnip was the go-to thing to have grown. It's a very easy tuber. Actually, I believe the leaves are actually somewhat toxic, so if you ever find one in the wild, don't eat them. Believe it or not, Emperor Tiberius of Rome would take this as tributary from his European holdings, and it was the preferred vegetable in substitute of meat, especially during Lent. The other one I want to talk about is, and excuse me, my Latin is horrible, Apium graveolens, and essentially it's celery. It's Latin for celery, or the species celery. Now, celery, again, originates around Eurasia, but more likely it came from the Mediterranean and parts of northern Africa. In fact, Pharaoh Tutankhamun was found buried with the flower petals of wild celery. It was used as ceremony and as a medicinal herb and medicinal plant. It was even featured in Homer's Odyssey in the island of Calypso, describing a field of blossoming celery. I guess flowers is what you'd call it, celery flowers. It's hard to think about. Nowadays, we just think of a green stick of water. Now, when it comes to the actual celery, there's 3 is it subgroups or subspecies? I'm not a botanist. That we talk about or utilize in the culinary world, which saw widespread use in Europe around the 16th century, I believe I was reading. I'll double check that. So you have the dulce group, which is the stalked celery, the stuff that you'll make ants in the log with, and the stuff that we've been using in stocks up until this point. You also have, and again, forgive my Latin, secilium, or the leafy stalk celery. This is very thin, wispy celery, but the leaves and the ribs that they have are incredibly fragrant and incredibly aromatic. And then finally, you have, I think, Rapaceum group, which is a group of celery that produces these large bulbs that we call celeriac. Now, obviously, every celery will produce celery bulbs or have a root system, but for us, this particular group has been cultivated over the centuries to make a nice big bulb that we can get a lot to use out of it, as opposed to like a little nubule you get from like a spring onion or something like that. So, okay, I'm done geeking. I'm done. Let's cut stuff. You've probably seen me peel onions a million times, so it's not a huge deal. And I forgot, you need a peeler for this. Adjust the camera, sorry if it shakes. So, for the parsnip, treat it just like a carrot. Just take your peeler and peel away the outer layer to reveal the white kind of ivory flesh. Now, parsnip, if you've never had it before, is actually kind of almost like a sickly sweet. It's really hard to describe. It actually does have quite a bit of sweetness. I can see why in Europe, and again, I know I'm geeking out again, why it was so common to use as a sweetener and why it was so favored during Lent. Now, the celeriac is a different story because you have all these tubers and tubes up here, if you can see that on the camera. So what we're going to try to do, and be very careful with this, retaining your claw and making sure your knife is sharp, we're going to kind of just cut away the top of those tubers to reveal the white flesh on the inside. And sometimes you can get some really bad celery that you just have to cut away so much of it. It's like, why did you pay so much for it? Because I think right now this is almost $4 a pound. So once you get those smaller roots taken care of, you can take and try to run your peeler down the rest of it if you have a pretty aggressive peeler like mine. This is why I love these Y peelers. They can kind of get in there pretty easily. Now, celery, like I said, has a very strong celery flavor. It can also have a really strong smokiness or even a bit of nuttiness, depending if you were to roast it, actually get some like nice caramelized color on it. And it technically has more sugars in it compared to the actual top of the stem. So if you have never tried this roasted, I highly recommend it. So be careful, because where those tubers spread out, you'll find bits of dirt in there. So try to get it all peeled away if you can, and worst case, if you have to, just get in there with a brush and clean all that away. And you should have a nice, clean piece of celeriac. Now, onion, I probably don't have to demonstrate too much. I think at this point we all know how to do that. But the leek I will kind of mention on and touch on. I know my cutting board's dirty. No, it's not dirty. For the leek, we like to utilize in the kitchen mostly the white part of the leek, since the green part gets a little bitter. So typically we will cut this away. Now, if this wasn't a stock specifically for white mirepoix, I would toss this in. But I fear sometimes the green may kind of muddle the mixture or make it a little off color. So I will have to save that for another day. Now, if you see the leek, just like an onion, because a leek is an onion technically, it's all layered like that. So if you ever have to julienne it or cut it, which again, the knife work video is coming, I promise. We can cut away the root, and you can reveal the, I'll split this in half. Reveal these nice layers. Now, the top of the leek is okay, usually when it comes to dirt, but the bottom of it near the stem, we want to keep an eye out and look, because this can get really dirty. We got lucky. This is a pretty clean looking leek, but these little pleats in between, how the plant grows, it can trap dirt in there pretty easily. So it's always good to check. No one wants to bite into dirt. Now, for the cutting of said vegetables. Very simply, again, this is going for a long time, so we're okay with bigger cuts. If you just want to make a good 2-inch chunk of leek, that's fine. Set that aside. And for the parsnip, Again, we already thankfully have a nice flat surface, so nothing crazy. We're going to split it down the center. You can reveal the nice white tuber inside. And I am going to split this into 6 or about 1-inch chunks. And then for the parsnip, again, because it's so bulbous, I usually chop off the bottom so you have something similar to this. So imagine if it was like folded over on itself like so. It would be like a 1-inch chunk. You kind of have to visually or 3-dimensionally think about it, and then just split this ball down the center, and I will be pretty happy with that. And again, let's get these all measured out and set that aside. On to the aromatics. Remember, peppercorns, just have them set aside. Garlic I'll get to in a second. If you need a refresher on parsley, again, it's okay to use all the leaves, but if you need to or want to save them, remember, quickly pinch the leaf at the bottom and just tear it away. You can save these, you can dry these, you can make them as a garnish, whatever you'd like to do. I know the recipe only calls for a few stems, but I'm going to end up using the whole bunch because why not? I bought the whole bunch. Thyme, again, very simple, to take a piece of thyme, pinch your fingers together, and strip away these leaves. Save the leaves, dry them, and utilize them there. Bay, just as dried, throw them in when we get to our aromatic portion of this. So, I don't know if I've demonstrated actually breaking like a full bulb of garlic. This is a very tiny garlic, so let me demonstrate it. Some people will take and run their knife down the stem, which is a very popular method, and it removes everything. Others will go through and I'll just crush it with the back of my hand, or the palm of my hand, and that will release the cloves from this stem base. And then from there, you kind of just sit and separate, again, using the side of the knife and a fist. Don't cut yourself. We crush the garlic, peel away the pieces like so. Much easier if you have a big cleaver, but this works just as well. Just don't, oh, I already crushed that one. Just don't cut yourself, please. No one needs a trip to the clinic. No one needs stitches. Believe me, I've had a few of them. And with those all crushed aside, let's check on our bones, because it looks like they're about to come to a simmer. Oh, I forgot to mention, why this collection, oh, that's a bad garlic. Why this collection of aromatics could be a problematic thing. A lot of chefs worry, just like with the green leek, that the greenery will kind of leach into the mixture and not be a great light flavor profile they like, or have a tinge of green. It is completely up to you. I've never really had that big of an issue when it comes to it. You could also do the sachet d'épices, which I mentioned before, rolling it in cheesecloth, to monitor and keep an eye on how much flavor, how much color is being imparted from such a strong aromatic such as parsley. Now for black peppercorns, I've also heard chefs say they only want to use the white peppercorns, these ones right here. So, hoping that the softer, more mild flavor, and you can barely see that, can you? Hoping that softer, more mild flavor is more prominent as opposed to black peppercorns, which has a little bit of more of a sharper flavor. If you ever have white peppercorns, think of eating alfalfa. If you put too much of it, it tastes literally like a barn. And garlic, I've never really had any controversy or issues with using garlic when doing like a fumet or a blanched bone method of stock. But you know, to each their own. Every chef is different. Now we can go check on those simmering bones. This is the hard part, right? Waiting for it to come to a simmer and be ready to go, but you already have all your mise en place ready, just kind of chomping at the bit. I did want to kind of show you, look at all this extra scum and stuff that's coming off. Look at all this potential fat, all these pieces that would have ruined your otherwise beautiful creation of a stock that we're going to dump out and get completely clear of. So, for clarity's sake, this is going to be amazing. Now, if you happen to get a really fatty bunch of bones, it's okay. when we go to cool everything down, we can skim off that top layer of fat. So don't worry too much if you think your bones are too fatty or there's too much meat left in the neck bones. We can take care of that. But now we have to play the waiting game. Now we're boiling. You can perform a dépoulage here and really get the scum off here. Now, I know we're going to drain this. Man, it already smells like Christmas. Holy cow. I know we're going to drain this, but any extra help this stock can get, such as you just dépoulaging this top layer of scum, will be really helpful. Because these little bits and pieces can sometimes get stuck to undersides or parts of bones, and even if you try your best to rinse things off, you may not get everything. So, getting this off the top would be fantastic. Look how deliciously gross that is. Now, set a timer for 5 minutes, let these go, and then we will drain them into our strainer and get them rinsed off again in cold water. We want to get everything tempered to the same or relatively same temperature when we go back on the stove to create nice convection currents. I know I'm just like sloppily dépoulaging, but I just want to get all this crap off here. Okay, it's time for a pork facial. I usually try to dump the bones last. Why is there water getting stuck in there? I usually try to dump the bones last because I can get all the extra scum to follow first. And then give them a good rinse off. This is the only time I approve of just dumping your bones. And you see the bottom of that pot all full of random crap and scum like that? We're gonna get that rinsed off too. Ideally, you'd want to start in a completely new pot, but let's be realistic. How many of us have extra stock pots laying around and you know, that kind of stuff? So. Now, in goes, this is a quart container, so that's the only reason I know how much this is. In goes 4 to 5 quarts of water. I'm gonna go a little on the high side and go 5 quarts of water. And yes, again, remember, cold water. Always start in cold water. You want to have those nice, even convection currents, create a nice raft. Even though, again, this blanched bone stock should be more, how can I say, more clear and easier to work with. Boiling them will still be a big no-no. I can actually see little specks of particles still in there and bits of fat. So, gotta wipe the bottom of this, or my stove will not be happy with me. So, get this on your stove, lights, fan, action, get it over medium heat, and now we add our white Mire poix to the mixture. When this comes up to a simmer, we will then add our aromatics. But for now, I'm going to show you something that I'm doing with this stock today. What I mentioned before in the chicken stock episode, and will probably continue to mention, especially in the coming episodes, is to take these recipes that I give you and utilize them for your needs, like your flavor profile, what your household needs, what will taste good to you. Not everyone will like a blanched bone pork stock. People may want to see it roasted. You know, not everyone will like chicken stock. Someone may actually, you know, have a duck or two that they can, you know, give away or spare. So, making my own sachet de épices, I want to talk about what I'm doing with today's pork. Now, funny enough, the holiday season is literally right around the corner, and I want to use this stock as part of the holiday ham. So, my little take on this is I kind of want the holiday flavors, a little bit of smokiness to it. So what I'm going to use is, apparently I picked up the freaking branches of a rosemary tree. So I'm going to utilize these 5 giant stems. We gotta center it a little bit better. I'm using 15 clove, and I am using a Ceylon, believe it's Ceylon cinnamon stick. Now this is different from the standard cinnamon that you find at the grocery store, that being cassis. The cassis usually has a thicker bark, a much more pungent, stronger flavor. This one, Ceylon cinnamon, is something you find a lot more from Latin cuisine. It is mild, it has a bit of a citrusy flavor to it, and is utilized in not only savory but also sweet dishes, as well as teas and hot chocolates you would find in Central and South America. And finally, a dried ancho chili for myself. I love the smokiness. I love like the little subtle, slight sweetness you get out of it. And the reason I want to do this in the sachet, because these giant stems of rosemary can easily overpower this subtle stock. That ancho could easily run away with the rest of the stock, becoming excessively smoky or flavor that I don't really want. And of course, clove being an incredibly pungent spice. So I will utilize this today and check on it every so often so I don't kill my stock with any of these flavors individually. So let us check and see if we've come to a simmer. It's about to come up to that simmer, so we're going to perform a little bit of a dépoulage here. Get rid of this extra scum, extra foam. You can already see, if you don't know if you can see on the camera or not, but you can kind of already see below the surface level, or the surface of the water, and how clear it is compared to, let's say, our chicken stock we did in the last episode. Obviously not nearly as clear as the vegetable stock because there's no fat there, but it is what it is. Now, during the cooking process, you're going to see a lot of evaporation, especially if you, let's say, accidentally let it simmer a little too high or your pot's a little too wide. It is okay to add tap hot water to the edge of the pot to kind of help keep the convection current flowing. Adding cold water when it's already at a simmer will just halt the whole process and mess up your convection currents. Now, if we're lucky, I guess lucky for me or lucky for you, we'll have enough evaporation that can kind of demonstrate that. But until then, let's just perform our regular tasks of dépoulage and add our aromatics. Now, we want to let this simmer for about 6 hours. I'm going to let this go for probably every hour. I'm going to come back and check it. Not only it's a dépoulage, but because of my little spice sachet I mentioned earlier, can get really, really overpowering very quickly. So, I will see you in a little bit. Please ignore the washer in the background. We're about at the hour mark, and you can look at the color on that. I'm actually surprised how deep of a color it got, but I wanted to give it a taste test, because like I said, my sachet is a little strong on the spice department. I can definitely taste the cinnamon and the clove coming through, but I really can't taste the smokiness of the ancho yet. So I'm going to let it go probably another half hour and see from there. Another half hour passed by. It looks really good. You can see that clarity and how much easier it is to get out of a blanch bone method. So let's give this a taste. Oh yeah, I can taste the ancho. I can taste a little bit of the cinnamon. I think it's time to ditch this sachet. Now when you pull the sachet out, be really gentle to not want to break the rest of the raft around it. want that sachet to cool, like on a separate plate or something, so we don't melt any trash bags. But this stock is not ready yet, so we'll let this go for a few more hours. Alright, a total of 6 hours has passed, and the stock has actually darkened a lot more than I thought it would, but you can see we've retained a good clarity. And I'm going to do our little final taste test here. It's very good. Pork is definitely not as strong, but I can really smell those spices and aromatics we added, especially that clove. So let's take this off the stove and get it strained. So set up your wire strainer, colander, and cheesecloth if you wish, and get your heat-proof containers ready. Now, remember when you pour this, 1, this is hot, and 2, try your best not to just dump all the bones in there right away. And the cheesecloth will kind of shrink on you as it contracts from the heat and all the liquid. That's perfectly normal, perfectly fine. It may get gunked up. Let's say you have an extra, like, I don't know, you have a lot of extra scum in there that didn't come away or get off. It could create a small film layer on the cheesecloth, and it won't allow the stock to drain perfectly. That is okay. Oops, see, bones dumped a little bit on me, but that is all right. I can't see because I decided to wear my glasses while pouring this, getting a pork facial. Da-da-da. And come on, every little bit counts. Oh, I lost a bone. That's okay. Remember, we only want to pour in about 2 inches of liquid in each of these containers. 2 inches means that when it goes into the refrigerator, it can cool down to below 4 degrees Celsius or 40 degrees Fahrenheit in less than 6 hours. And again, that's according to the United States, you know, food and health safety regulation, whatever. Do it. It will prevent bacteria from building up. It will prevent it from spoiling. So get your pork stock put to bed, and you can store these for up to 3 months frozen in the, obviously in the freezer, or 3 weeks in the refrigerator in an airtight container. Now, if this is your first time doing a blanched bone stock, or your first time doing a pork stock, again, congratulations. I hope this was informative, it was helpful, and you can take and make these stocks your own. Just like I did with my special little sachet, the 8-piece, I hope you can take these and make them or tailor them to your own taste and your family. So, with all that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching Kira's Kitchen, and I hope you keep your knives sharp and your palates open. The next day. Nice and viscous. Now, all this white stuff up here is just the fat, and you can scrape off that top layer. But remember, make sure you store an airtight container.